Perhaps it has been a long time since you truly rested. In the whirl of your days and the quiet heaviness of nights where nameless thoughts keep turning, the mind becomes a restless sky filled with sound, filled with motion, yet lacking the stillness it quietly longs for. There are moments when all we wish for is to lay everything down, every worry, every unspoken question, and simply let ourselves drift into a space that feels safe, a place where the mind can finally breathe. Tonight, I invite you into that journey. A gentle, unhurried passage where the truths of the universe, those space facts that seem so dry at first glance, become mirrors reflecting the inner world. Where the distance between a faraway star and the tiredness in your chest suddenly feels strangely close. Let the whispers of the cosmos guide you. Through forgotten planets, icy moons, and beams of ancient light that began their travels millions of years ago. Each story is a slow breath, each discovery a quiet step deeper into yourself. Carl Sagan once said, "Somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known." Tonight, that incredible thing might simply be the piece you have left behind for far too long. So lie down, soften your shoulders, let the gentle glow of the stars cradle you. We will drift through the universe together, light as a dream, deep as a question without an answer, and allow the soul to return to the state it has always yearned for. A stillness, a clarity, and a very soft awakening just before you fall asleep. There is something strangely beautiful about those little-known space missions. They resemble the small moments in a human life steps that seem unimportant at first glance, yet quietly hold a persistent meaning waiting to be discovered. Tonight, I want to invite you to walk with me through those stories, not in haste, not in noise, but along a slow, gentle timeline drifting softly like the breath settling in your chest. When our minds grow accustomed to living amid clamor and urgency, these stories feel like doorways into another world, a world where human beings in their smallest and most fragile state still dare to stretch out a hand toward the impossible. Nietzsche once wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." Perhaps these missions are such dancing stars born from the chaos, curiosity, and boundless longing of our species. Let us begin from a place that seems inhospitable to life Venus. A world of fire so hot that even a breath would be enough to burn anything to ash. And yet in the 1970s, humanity sent a metal machine into that inferno, not to conquer, not to prove anything, but simply to look, simply to know. The Soviet Venera probes descended onto Venus like solitary monks entering hell carrying only one question. What does this world look like? And before they were crushed by pressures 92 times that of Earth, before they were melted by heat reaching 460 degrees, they sent back the very first images, desolate, fractured landscapes filled with rubble, yet strangely, profoundly still. In that brief moment as we gaze at the grainy Venera photographs, we also see ourselves in the harshest phases of our lives, places where we believed we could not stand, yet somehow we still managed to send out a signal to the world saying that we tried, saying that we were here. Some challenges last only minutes but define who we are. From that fiery world, the journey brings us to somewhere colder, somewhere red like a wound, learning to heal Mars. Few know that the Soviets were the first to land on its surface. Mars 3 touched the red soil, and for a fleeting moment, only 20 seconds, it said something. A signal. A nearly empty frame, just a soft gray haze. Then silence. Eternal silence. But you know that silence is also a form of achievement. Because there are things in life whose meaning we understand only in the very moment they disappear. The silence of Mars 3 was not failure. It was a reminder sometimes life gives us only a few seconds to open a door, and what matters most is not what we see, but that we dared to open it. From the world of stone and dust, we moved to a gentler tale, smaller, lighter, yet infinitely symbolic. It was when NASA sent seeds into orbit in the 1980s, seed symbols of life, of potential, of everything that sleeps within a human being. They were carried into space, into weightlessness, into light that no longer behaved like Earth's light, into a realm where time seemed to flow differently. When those seeds returned and sprouted in small gardens in the hands of children, people suddenly recognized something beautiful. Space was not only a place to explore, but also a place to plant questions, to plant curiosity. to plant the awareness that the universe is not far away at all. It lives inside every tiny sprout reaching for the light. Henry David Thoreau once wrote in Walden, "I begin to see that a seed is a spiritual thing." And perhaps when those seeds that once drifted through Earth's orbit rose from the soil, they reminded us of ourselves. No matter where we are thrown, no matter the trials we face, what belongs to life will always find a way to rise. From the seeds we move toward another gentle story, Apollo 12. One of the rarest moments in space history, two astronauts, their white suits soft like moonlight, walking across the cold lunar surface to visit an old friend, Surveyor 3. The little robot had been there long before them, calm, silent, doing its duty. And years later, humanity returned not to collect data, but simply to visit. That scene stirs something tender in us, as if in the vastness of the universe, affection still finds a place to exist. Across hundreds of thousands of kilometers, human presence could still connect with its own past. In life, there are places we must return to, not to achieve anything, but simply to give thanks, to whisper to ourselves, "I have come this far." And finally, we arrive at a moment as delicate and fleeting as a petal lifted by the wind. Curiosity descending onto Mars by parachute. From far orbit, MRO captured that image like a cosmic blink. A machine nearly a ton in weight, suspended in the red sky by a white parachute, like a being learning to touch a new world for the first time. There is something deeply human in that image. We too often find ourselves suspended between choices, between hope and fear, between gain and loss. And sometimes we forget that falling can also be a form of beginning. When Curiosity touched the ground and sent back its first photos, it offered a quiet reminder: every great journey begins in fragility, and fragility, when seen with gentle eyes, is as beautiful as a miracle. Perhaps that is why these hidden missions, though rarely mentioned, have the power to touch our hearts so softly. They are not loud like grand triumphs. They are not brilliant like Armstrong's first step, but they whisper something we often forget: that even in our smallness, we can create quietly magnificent things. That even when no one speaks our name, our journey still holds worth. That even if we have only 20 seconds to speak to the world, we can still leave our mark. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "What we do now echoes in eternity." And these small missions from Venera to Curiosity have echoed, shaping the way humanity understands itself. Tonight, as you listen to the story, I hope you feel something true within you too. There are such space missions. Silent efforts, fragile moments, first steps onto unfamiliar ground, signals you send out in uncertainty, yet someone somewhere receives them. You do not need to be grand, you only need to be present, and that is enough. Let that thought lull you into sleep like a tiny probe, drifting through Mars's red sky, slowly, steadily, and full of hope. And then when the stories of those quiet, uncelebrated missions come to an end, we find ourselves standing before a new threshold of the deep night. A soft pause drifts through the air, just long enough for the breath to slow, just long enough for the mind to sense the faint shifting of the universe. Do you hear it? As if somewhere in the dimness, something is inviting us to step further. Another journey, another note in the endless symphony of the cosmos. And this is the moment we leave behind the stories of humankind and travel farther, so much farther toward worlds where even imagination must hesitate before daring to enter. Nietzsche once wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "And when you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." Perhaps Titan is one such abyss. Not an abyss of terrifying darkness, but one of profound stillness, of a world so distant that nothing familiar remains, and thus everything within us becomes clearer in its reflection. Let us step into that world slowly, gently. Tonight, there is no need to rush. Titan, the great moon of Saturn, resembles no place humanity has ever touched. When the Huygens probe slipped through its hazy golden atmosphere, chilled to 180 degrees Celsius, it felt as though it were descending into an eternal winter dream. Yet beneath the dense fog, something wondrous appeared. Winding rivers, sprawling lakes, not of water, but of liquid methane, hydrocarbons, dark cold droplets flowing across the surface of a world so alien. How strange it is to realize that in such absolute cold, Titan seems profoundly peaceful. No human voices, no violent winds, only an infinite silence, as though time itself has paused to listen to its own heartbeat. When the small probe landed on ground soft like wet sand, it carried more than scientific instruments. It carried humanity's wonder. In that moment, Titan ceased to be a distant moon. It became a symbol. A portion of the mind we rarely visit, a quiet, cold expanse, yet full of structure and depth. A place where emotions do not disappear, they simply settle like droplets of methane resting on a nocturnal lake. There are times in life when we too enter winters of the soul. Phases when we believe everything inside has frozen, that nothing is moving anymore. But Titan reminds us that even within the coldest silence, there are hidden currents, rivers of feeling flowing in a direction we do not yet understand. Not all movement is warm. Some movements arise from stillness. Thoreau once wrote in Walden, "I have a great deal of company in the house, especially in the morning when nobody calls." It is a line about solitude without loneliness, about the quiet peace Titan has carried for billions of years. From Titan, our imagination steps into something different, stronger, fiercer, like a meteor striking the mind. Imagine this in humanity's effort to understand the structure of a comet. We chose to do something no one had ever dared. We fired a bullet into it. This was the Deep Impact mission, a project where science became something almost poetic. To understand something, sometimes we must break it. It may sound violent, but look within yourself. Haven't there been moments when to truly understand what lives inside you had to accept breaking the outer shell, to face the fragments, not to destroy yourself, but to illuminate what lies beneath? When the impactor slammed into Comet Temple 1, a burst of light blossomed into the dark. Not a loud light, but a clear one. The kind of brightness that appears when we finally confront our true emotions, dazzling, then gentle, then clarifying. Deep Impact was never just about striking an object. It was a beautiful metaphor for honesty. To understand the nature of something, we must sometimes be brave enough to look at the very first crack. Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And in a way, Deep Impact made the darkness of a comet conscious. And then, from that explosion of light, we drift toward another image, softer, older, tinged with the nostalgia of ancient nights when humans first looked up and wondered. Halley. Comet Halley has crossed Earth's sky throughout all of human history, a loyal traveler passing by every 76 years, slow as the heartbeat of an old universe. In 1986, ESA launched the Giotto spacecraft to meet it. Giotto was one of humanity's bravest journeys, venturing close to one of the most dangerous icy bodies in the solar system. Halley's ice dust is not gentle like mist. It is a storm of tiny bullets scattering through the blackness. Giotto was struck again and again until one piece sent it tumbling out of control for a few seconds. But it recovered. It steadied itself. And it did what humanity had dreamed of for centuries. It looked directly into Halley's core. Do you see the symbol here? There are seasons in life when we enter a dark region with the fear that we will be shattered. But like Giotto, we still have the ability to return to see what we need to see before the journey closes. Giotto stands as a reminder that being wounded does not mean losing purpose. Being struck does not mean failure. Sometimes it is the very impact that brings us closer to the truth. And just as Halley returns every 76 years, sadness in us also returns in its own cycles. But each time we understand ourselves a little more, soften a little more. And like that comet, we move through the darkness, carrying a long trail of light behind us. When we look at all three stories, Titan, Deep Impact, Giotto, we realize they are not merely scientific knowledge. They are three sketches of the human journey toward maturity, a silent world rich with hidden motion, a breaking of the shell to reveal the inner truth, a passage through dust and danger to reach the core of what matters. And if tonight you are listening to these words in a dim room, perhaps you are undertaking that journey as well, in your own quiet way. J.R.R. Tolkien once wrote in The Fellowship of the Ring, "Not all those who wander are lost. Not every wandering is a losing. Some journeys are how we find ourselves again." Let Titan, Deep Impact, and Giotto become companions to you tonight. Let them lull you towards sleep with the stillness of methane lakes, with soft explosions of light in the dark. with the image of a trembling yet steadfast spacecraft facing a storm of cosmic dust. And as your eyes begin to close, I hope you feel something small yet essential. You are not alone in your journey. The universe is here, gentle as a hand resting on your shoulder, not pushing, not judging, only whispering. Keep going. I am always beside you. As the story of Titan fades and the image of Giotto still shimmers in your mind like a thin ribbon of light across the dark, perhaps you can feel a subtle shift in the space around you. There are moments when the universe seems to inhale deeply and hold that breath in a long silence, as if preparing to lead us towards something larger. So large that it makes us feel small, yet not in a way that frightens us. Rather in a way that lets us dissolve gently into immensity like a single drop of water joining the ocean of night. The world of Titan, of Halley's Comet, of the delicate collisions we just explored, they are only the first steps. The preludes, the opening whispers before a grander encounter, the meeting with Jupiter. Jupiter is not merely a planet, it is a phenomenon, a symbol of what is too vast to grasp, too distant to touch, too powerful to hold, yet still present like a silent teacher in the night. Carl Jung once wrote in Psychological Types, "The greater the tension, the greater the potential." And nowhere in the solar system is that inner tension expressed more vividly than on Jupiter, a world where energy gathers spirals, transforms, and echoes like the heartbeat of the cosmos. Let the story bring you closer, but do not hurry. We will arrive there slowly, as if drifting through a dream with softened gravity. From afar, Jupiter is already a paradox. A giant capable of holding more than 1,000 Earths within its volume, yet offering no solid surface on which to stand. A world without ground, only layers of atmosphere storms, swirling vortices, and endless flashes of lightning. And strangely, Jupiter sings. Yes, it produces radio waves so strong that with the right instrument you could hear them not as a familiar melody, but as the distant resonance of an enormous soul. Whistles, low-frequency electromagnetic pulses. It all sounds like wind moving through a doorway between the stars. It's hard not to remember Pythagoras. There is geometry in the humming of the strings. Perhaps there is geometry, too, in the song of Jupiter, a rhythm felt only by those who have grown quiet enough to perceive it. And then we see the great red spot, a storm that has lasted for centuries, perhaps longer, a tempest so vast that Earth could disappear inside it, a storm that never stops yet slowly shrinks over time as if it were tiring or evolving or softly reminding the universe that nothing lasts forever. We all carry our own great red spot's emotions, memories, wounds, so enduring we once believed they would never change. But like Jupiter's storm, they shift, they contract, they fade in color, they spin with less force as the years pass. And one day we realize they have quieted into calm. Jupiter holds other mysteries as well, metallic hydrogen, an exotic form of matter created under pressures impossible to fully reproduce on Earth. Scientists believe that deep within Jupiter, hydrogen turns fluid and metallic, conducting electricity, reflecting light, forming currents like the neural pathways of a planet. And deep within that realm, they suspect Jupiter may have no solid core. Or if it once had one, it may have dissolved into the swirling hydrogen, becoming part of the flow itself. Is that not a beautiful metaphor for the inner life? Some spend their entire lives searching for their core, a solid, unchanging essence. But Jupiter suggests that perhaps we are not meant to be fixed. Perhaps our constant shifting, dissolving into experience, merging with the currents of our lives is our true nature. Within Jupiter's cloud layers, lightning bursts with 10 times the energy of Earth's. Winds race at 600 km/s, forming cream-colored amber and crimson bands, shades resembling emotions we cannot always name. Small red ovals, tiny storms appear and vanish like passing thoughts. If Earth is like a heart, Jupiter is the nervous system of a planet firing with energy. And Jupiter's magnetic field is so immense that it engulfs the space between its moons, creating auroras so bright that if a human stood nearby, the light would fall over their skin like living silk. Some of these auroras never fade. They persist like the long, continuous awareness of the planet. Just as within each of us, there is always a magnetic field, an invisible force of attraction or repulsion that we cannot fully explain, yet always feel. The way we draw others close or gently push them away is sometimes as mysterious and powerful as Jupiter's pull. And then another enigma: Jupiter appears nearly devoid of water, even though theory insists it should contain vast amounts. A contradiction, a question without an answer. Have you ever felt this in yourself, that something should be present, peace, courage, clarity, yet you cannot find it? Not because it does not exist, but because it is hidden in a form you do not yet understand. This leads us to Jupiter's elusive flashes, its disappearing rings, its shifting clouds, as if the planet is playing hide-and-seek with its observers. Once again, Jupiter reminds us that the nature of anything grand is never to reveal itself all at once. And finally, our gaze shifts to its three iconic moons, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto. Three frozen worlds that may hold oceans beneath their icy crusts, oceans tens of kilometers deep. And where there are oceans, there is always hope for life. How beautiful it is to think that the coldest, loneliest places may be the ones most capable of nurturing something new. Just as often, the quietest people hold the warmest hearts, and the saddest moments carry the greatest seeds of growth. Tolkien wrote in The Two Towers, "The world is indeed full of peril, and in it there are many dark places, but still there is much that is fair." And Jupiter, with all its storms and mysteries, is proof that this fairness, this beauty, often lives in the places we least expect. So tonight, as you lie quietly and listen, let Jupiter become a gentle mirror for your soul. There are parts of you in turmoil, and that is all right. There are parts you do not yet understand, and that is natural. There are parts that seem cold, yet are secretly nurturing new life. The vast universe offers us more than knowledge. It offers us a softer truth. You too are a world. You have your storms, your red scars, your lightning, your hidden oceans. And you are quietly orbiting your own sun, slowly, steadily, faithfully. Let that thought wrap around you like a warm blanket. Let Jupiter rock you with its deep, ancient rhythm. And if your eyes begin to grow heavy, let yourself drift away like a small moon suspended in the peaceful gravity of the night, leaving behind the swirling storms of Jupiter, where lightning and magnetic tides feel like the vast emotional rhythms of the cosmos. You may notice your mind becoming a little lighter, as if after witnessing the fury of a giant world from afar, you suddenly recognize that the turbulence inside your own heart is in truth quite ordinary. And in that settling stillness, a shade of red begins to appear before you. Not the red of anger, not the red of fear, but the red of a distant plain of dust where winds have drifted for billions of years, carving soft patterns like the grooves of memory. This is Mars, a world both familiar and foreign, close to humanity's imagination for thousands of years, yet so distant that each signal we receive must travel minutes through empty space. A world that seems silent, and yet who knows, beneath that faint veil of dust, the whisper of life may once have lingered. Nietzsche once wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "There is more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophy." And sometimes the universe resembles our own bodies, filled with fleeting sensations, faint signals, and subtle vibrations that make us wonder, is this the hint of life or merely illusion? Mars is exactly that. A place balanced on the boundary between yes and no, between hope and doubt, between answers and silence. The Viking experiment of 1976 was one such moment, when the Viking landers scooped a handful of red soil, placed it into a tiny onboard chamber, and the result returned positive, a sign of biological activity, a heartbeat on another world. But later interpretations questioned it. Perhaps it wasn't life at all, but a chemical reaction in the soil. And the debate has continued for almost 50 years. But the beauty of that moment does not lie in the conclusion. It lies in the instant we realize that even the faintest signal, the smallest fluctuation in a box no larger than a hand, could make the human heart tremble. There are moments in life when we too encounter such signals. A feeling, an intuition, a glance, a strangely quiet minute. Not enough evidence to name it, not enough certainty to believe it fully, yet somehow we know something living is there. Mars sends such signals, faint but persistent. Formaldehyde, methane, organic compounds that cannot exist without continual replenishment. And the strangest part, methane on Mars changes with the seasons, as if the planet itself were breathing, slowly, gently. in its own private rhythm. It calls to mind our own breath, something we often forget to listen to. Henry David Thoreau wrote in Walden, "What lies behind us and what lies ahead of us are tiny matters compared to what lives within us." And perhaps whatever lives within Mars, whatever still stirs inside it, has never fully died. Experiments show that Earth lichens can survive under Martian conditions. Earth microbes too, requiring only a little warmth, a little moisture, a little light. Mars may not be a world of forests and green landscapes, but it could be a world of very small things. And sometimes the smallest things endure the longest. Across the Martian surface rover, cameras occasionally capture layered rolls, strange spirals in the rock and soil, resembling ancient microbial mats on early Earth. Delicate swirls, thin sediments, gentle curves that recall the dawn of life billions of years ago. We cannot say what they truly are, but the beauty of science lies in the humility to accept uncertainty. Then there is the meteorite, ALH8 4001, an ancient stone that fell on Antarctica carrying tiny structures no larger than hairs, possibly fossil traces. A message from a distant past delivered in a bottle made of rock and ice. In moments like this, Mars ceases to feel foreign. It becomes an old friend from the beginning of time, sending us small, mysterious gifts. And methane, the strongest hint, continues to rise and fade, appearing each season like a rhythm no one yet understands. Just as in our own lives, we sometimes feel peace for no clear reason, or unease without blame, or a sudden sense of being alive even when nothing has changed. Those subtle oscillations are the methane of the soul. Tolkien wrote in The Return of the King, "There is light and beauty up there that no shadow can touch. Mars has its own light and beauty, not bright or overwhelming, but soft, like moonlight reflected off red soil." When we place each clue side by side, Viking methane, formaldehyde, microbial survival, hydrocarbons, layered sediments, meteorites, we see more than science. We see humanity's hope. That somewhere out there we are not alone, that life is not rare but natural to the universe, that even in the driest, harshest places, life finds a way. And you know, within each of us there is also a Mars, a region barren, quiet, cold, a place we think nothing can live. But sometimes a single memory, a tiny spark of hope as small as methane, is enough to reveal that this place is still breathing. As the night deepens, we begin to understand that planets, galaxies, signs of life are all mirrors held up to the human heart. Nothing in the universe is entirely without feeling. Everything reflects. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, remember that you too carry signals you do not always listen to. Seasonal rhythms, small pulses of hope, layers of memory, fossils of things that once mattered. The universe may be vast enough to make us feel small, yet gentle enough to make us feel held. Let Mars rest its quiet hand upon your heart and whisper, "I too have been barren. I too have been cold, but I still breathe, and so do you." If your eyes begin to grow heavy, let yourself drift with the red winds of that distant world, slowly, peacefully, like a grain of dust finding its way home to the universe. As the fragile traces of possible life on Mars slowly fade into the dark, and the image of seasonal methane still lingers somewhere in your mind like the gentle breath of a distant world, perhaps you begin to sense a subtle shift in tonight's journey. From that red horizon, our gaze slowly turns back closer, softer, more familiar. Like the way a heart, after wandering far for so long, instinctively finds its way home to what is nearest and most tender. In the deep night, there is one celestial companion that has always been there, quiet, unchanging, unhurried. An ancient friend beside Earth since the dawn of time, long before life exhaled its very first breath. The moon. Nietzsche once wrote in The Gay Science, "What if, someday or night, a demon were to steal after you and say, 'This life as you now live it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more.' And perhaps if we were to live this life innumerable times more, the moon would still be there, a timeless whisper of presence." Let us step into the moon's story with a very slow breath. There is no need to rush. This part of the journey values stillness more than knowledge. One of the strangest truths about the moon is this: the first footprints left by humankind may last for millions of years. There is no wind, no rain, no weather to erase them. only ancient dust lying as still as the memory of the universe. Those footprints of Armstrong Aldrin and the courage of humanity itself will outlive every monument on Earth. How beautiful it is that the most fragile steps ever taken are the ones that may endure the longest. And in life too, it is often the smallest moments, the softest gestures that remain the longest in someone's memory. Yet the moon is not only gentle, its dust, the dust that clung to astronaut suits, smells faintly of gunpowder. And it irritates the eyes, the nose, the skin. Astronauts described it as feeling like tiny shards of dry grass. A strange contradiction, a world that appears peaceful, yet covered in dust, sharp as blades. It reminds us of the seemingly harmless memories in our own lives, soft as dust, yet capable of hurting when we brush against them unexpectedly. At the moon's south pole, there are deep craters that sunlight has never reached. In that eternal darkness, scientists believe ancient ice remains frozen lakes untouched for billions of years. A beautiful paradox, the darkest, coldest places preserve water, the essence of life the longest. Just as within each of us there are shadowed regions we avoid looking at, yet those very places often hold the softest parts of who we are. The moon also quakes. Not like earthquakes, but long, gentle tremors lasting for minutes caused by Earth's tidal pull itself. This teaches us something simple and profound. Even the quietest celestial bodies tremble. And sometimes they tremble because something else is pulling on them in the most literal sense, just as our hearts sometimes shake in the presence of another. Another quiet secret, the far side of the moon is entirely different from the face we see each night. One half is always turned toward a smooth, calm, serene. The other rugged, battered, cratered like the history of a warrior. Everything has two sides. Every person, too. We see only the gentle half someone chooses to show us. Their hidden side, the impacts, the scars remains there, turning with them in ways we cannot witness. And then there is the strange truth that the moon is drifting away from Earth at about 4 centimeters per year, a movement slow but certain, like relationships or phases of life, not breaking all at once, but drifting quietly a little at a time until one day we look back and notice the distance has changed. And as the moon drifts away, Earth changes with it, the tides shift, the axis tilts differently, the climate responds. Without the moon, life may never have arisen. There would have been no tidal rhythms to ignite evolution. No stabilizing presence for fragile beginnings. It reminds us that some things we consider unrelated are in fact foundational. The quiet presence of someone who simply asks, "Are you doing okay today?" That too can be a pillar of our being. And then a gentle but sorrowful truth. When the sun becomes a red giant in the far future, the moon may be torn apart by tidal forces. But that destruction is not an end. Its fragments may form a luminous ring around Earth, a final gift of light left behind after billions of years of companionship. Beauty is often found in impermanence, in the tender truth that nothing stays the same. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." The moon, when it finally disappears, will simply be changing form, becoming something new and equally beautiful. But before thinking too far ahead, let us return to something small and intimate. Bacteria, lichens, and even tardigrades once visited the moon. They did not live long yet, they left traces. As if life in its deepest instinct always tries to slip into every corner of the universe, even places with no air to breathe. And then there are the moon trees, trees grown from seeds that traveled to the moon and came back to Earth. Ordinary trees, yet carrying within them the memory of space, holding the breath of weightless solitude, carrying the quiet story of a journey. Just like people, we each carry stories others cannot see, memories that entered darkness and returned as something quietly nourishing. When we reflect on the moon, its footprints, dust ice, hidden face, quakes drifting, distance roll in life's origin, future death, microbial visitors, and moon trees, we realize it is not only a celestial body, it is a symbol of companionship, not bright like the sun, not powerful like Jupiter, not mysterious like Titan, but steady, gentle, enduring. And tonight, if you close your eyes, perhaps you can feel that energy, the silent presence of something that has always been beside you, even when unseen. The moon reminds us everything has cycles. Every wound has its bright side and its hidden side. Every separation happens slowly. Everything that matters most often lives in silence. Let that thought wrap around you like a faint silver glow. Let the moon lull you with its soft eternity. And if your eyes are beginning to drift closed, let yourself slip into sleep as the moon slips into its own shadow, in stillness, in peace, in the gentle transformations of your breath. After listening to the gentle yet wistful story of the moon of footprints that may last millions of years of eternal shadows holding ancient water of quiet tremors stirred by earth itself, you may feel something very small but very real within your heart. A sense that the universe is not only something we observe with our eyes, but a mirror held up to the soul itself. And then as we leave behind the moon's silver glow, stepping into the space between the stars, a question begins to form, light as breath, fragile as a single mote of dust. Can humanity go farther? Can we ever reach the stars? It is not a new question. It has lived inside the human imagination since we gathered around fires, looking up at a sky full of stars and wondering what those distant lights belong to. Carl Sagan once wrote in Cosmos, "We are star stuff, contemplating the stars." And tonight, as you listen to these words, perhaps you too are becoming star stuff, a tiny piece of the universe wondering whether it can transcend itself. Now let me tell you about 10 pathways, 10 doors that science and imagination have opened for us to dream of traveling between the stars. But listen slowly, for this is not only a story of technology, it is a story of dreams. The first door is the light sail, a sail of sunlight, an idea so beautiful it feels like poetry, a thin, delicate sheet pushed not by wind, but by sunlight or lasers from Earth. No explosions, no engines, only softness and light, much like the moments in life when we are carried forward by something gentle, a thought, a belief, a quiet hope, yet it is enough to pull us out of our old orbit. The light sail reminds us not all movement requires force. Some journeys begin in pure subtlety. The second door is the nuclear pulse drive propulsion by a chain of nuclear bursts. It sounds violent, but its meaning is profoundly human. Each explosion behind the ship pushes it farther forward. Just like in life, our heartbreaks, our losses, our collapses, all the explosions we never wanted still became the force that moved us ahead. Mark Manson once wrote, "The pain you feel today will be the strength you feel tomorrow." The nuclear pulse is the physical embodiment of that truth. The third door is the starseed, tiny nanobots able to travel at 1/3 the speed of light, so small that no one notices them. But that smallness allows them to go incredibly far. Just like within us, there are tiny things, a dream, a curiosity, a memory. And one day it may be one of these small things that takes us to an entirely new world within our own lives. The fourth door, fusion drives. If humanity ever learns to harness the energy of the sun's core, we could cross the stars as easily as birds migrate across oceans. The greatest, most enduring energy comes from union, not division. And within the human spirit as well, when our inner parts harmonize instead of struggle, we can fly beyond any imagined limit. The fifth door, antimatter engines. Antimatter, the opposite of matter. When they meet, they do not fight, they release the greatest energy in the universe. A difficult but necessary lesson. Sometimes the part of us that feels opposite, our fear, our wounds, our shadow, is not an enemy. When we touch it, understand it, reconcile with it, our greatest strength emerges. Carl Jung wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Antimatter is the physics of that insight. The sixth door is one of the most beautiful dreams of physics, the Alcubierre warp drive bending space instead of moving through it. The ship does not outrun light. It simply makes space shrink ahead of it and stretch behind it, as if you stand still and the road quietly moves toward you. In life, we do not always need massive change. Sometimes a shift in perspective, and suddenly the path becomes shorter. The seventh door, black hole, starships, vessels powered by Hawking radiation. This strange idea suggests even absolute darkness contains energy. Even the places that seem destructive can sustain motion. There are times in life when we hit bottom, but it is often there at the darkest point that we find a new force pulling us upward. The black hole teaches that lesson. The eighth door, the Shkadov thruster, a device not meant to move a spaceship, but an entire star. Imagine a colossal mirror placed beside the sun, redirecting sunlight so gently yet continuously that it nudges the whole solar system across space over millions of years, like the power of collective will, like a community lifting a person slowly, patiently, steadily. No rush, no violence, only persistence. The ninth door, traversable wormholes, shortcut bridges through space, gateways between points separated by hundreds of light years. Have you ever met someone and within minutes felt as if you had known them for years? That too is a wormhole, a shortcut of the heart-defying time and logic. The final door, the halo drive, a method that uses a black hole's orbit to accelerate, borrowing momentum from something far greater than oneself, riding the universe's own pull. In life, we do this as well, leaning on books, mentors, love, belief to accelerate in ways we could never manage alone. When we look at these 10 technologies, from light sails to nuclear blasts, from fusion to wormholes, from black holes to warp, we see that they are all metaphors pointing to one truth. Human beings are always trying to go farther than themselves, farther in the universe, farther in imagination, farther in spirit. And tonight, as your eyes grow soft with sleep, I hope you feel this too. You are also traveling between stars in your own way. You are moving through darkness, through limits, through doubt. You are heading toward a distant light, a light that has always been there. Let sleep come to you like a slow voyage among the stars. Let each breath be a small leap away from Earth. And remember, you are a vessel. You carry engines of your own, and you can go much farther than you ever believed. After all we have traveled through, where light sails, nuclear engines, wormholes, and dreams that surpass the speed of light carried you across the frontier of what is possible, you may notice something strange stirring quietly within, that every technology, no matter how mechanical or physical it may seem, reflects something deeply human. A longing to go beyond limits, a yearning for paths not yet taken, a trembling curiosity toward inner landscapes we are still afraid to enter. And then, in the gentle pause between two chapters, like the breath that slows just before sleep settles in, another question begins to unfold. If there are countless ways to travel between the stars, then how many ways might life arise in this universe? This question is not only for astrobiologists. It is for all of us beings who are forever searching for meaning, for belonging, for a sense of place in the vastness. Nietzsche once wrote in The Gay Science, "There are no facts, only interpretations, and perhaps extraterrestrial life is the same, not merely chemistry, but infinite ways matter interprets itself into existence." Tonight, let me take you deeper, not into planets, but into possibilities. Strange, wondrous, even unbelievable forms of life, yet each offering a new way to understand our own hearts. Relax your shoulders, slow your breath. Let us begin. The first form is chiral life, mirror life. Life on Earth is built on molecules that twist in one direction. But imagine a world where everything spirals the opposite way, as if you were looking at life through a cosmic mirror. A complete, coherent existence, but reversed. A different reference frame. If a planet spun differently, if its light were polarized, another way, if its primordial chemistry tilted just slightly, mirror life might have blossomed long ago. And within us, too, there is always a mirrored self, a part that shines differently, moves differently, often forgotten, suppressed, deemed incorrect. But chiral life reminds us the mirrored version of you also deserves to breathe. Next is life with different solvents, life that does not need water. We assume water is essential, but look at Titan, Saturn's moon, where rivers of liquid methane flow and oceans sleep beneath 180-degree skies. Could life exist in ammonia, in liquid nitrogen, in methane? It could, because life grows wherever it can, not where conditions are ideal, but where conditions are real. Humans are the same. We adapt quietly, stubbornly, even in harsh emotional climates. Toxic environments, cold relationships, stifling expectations, yet somehow the heart still preserves a soft place inside. Is that not a strange and resilient form of life as well? Then comes arsenic-based life, replacing phosphate with arsenic. Arsenic is poison to us. Yet on another world, poison could be the foundation of life. A paradox the universe seems to enjoy. And is it not the same for us? Many of the things that once hurt us most become the things that strengthen us most. Arsenic life is the music of paradox, and paradox is often the universe's native language. Another form, non-green photosynthesis. Plants on Earth are green not because green is natural, but because of the sun's light spectrum. Under a red dwarf star, organisms might be purple, black, crimson, or shimmering like mirrors. Life adapts to the light it receives. So do we, becoming reflections of the environments, people, and loves that shaped us. Non-green life whispers a simple truth. Not everyone has to be green. Not everyone has to resemble each other to be considered alive. Then comes Titan-style chemistry life without oxygen. We think no oxygen means death, but some forms of life might thrive in oxygen-free worlds breathing hydrogen and methane instead. It is a quiet, profound reminder oxygen is not truth, it is merely Earth's habit. And in our own journeys, we often believe there is only one way to live until something or someone shows us we can live differently. The universe is always wider than our assumptions. And so are we. Next is the elegant and almost metaphysical possibility of silicon-based life. Silicon is abundant in the cosmos, far more than carbon, yet earthly life ignores it. But in worlds hotter, drier, older silicon might weave itself into structures, breathe, react, evolve a mineral organism, a body of stone, a consciousness in crystal. If carbon is the poetry of softness, silicon is the hymn of endurance. Sometimes we say our hearts have turned to stone. But what if that too is a form of survival, a different kind of life? And here is one of the most hauntingly beautiful possibilities, neutron star life. Imagine a being living in a realm denser than atomic nuclei, where a second of our time is an entire lifetime for it. Too fast to see, too small to touch, too strange to fathom. Italo Calvino wrote in Cosmic Comics, "The universe is a place where anything can happen. Neutron star life is the poetic proof of that." Another form, mysterious and luminous plasma life. Life without molecules, without cells, made only of energy. Like dancing glows in the ionosphere, like children of lightning, like sentient sparks of plasma. A being with no body yet, with patterns of behavior, resembling thought, resembling awareness. If plasma can live, where is the boundary between matter and mind? And finally, the gentlest hypothesis of all, the shadow biosphere. A hidden ecosystem on Earth itself, right beside us, unseen only because it uses a chemistry we do not yet know how to detect. Perhaps parallel life breathes beside us at this very moment. Perhaps we are not alone, even here. But deeper still, the shadow biosphere is a metaphor for the human heart. Each of us carries a hidden ecosystem, instincts, unnamed memories, unexplored dreams, still in seed form. We live with these shadows and often never recognize their presence. When we look back at these 10 strange forms of life, chiral silicon plasma, shadow biospheres, we discover something simple and profound. Life is not a pattern. Life is a possibility. The universe does not confine life to water, to oxygen, to carbon, just as life does not confine you to the person you once were. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote, in Existentialism is a humanism. Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. The universe seems to agree. Life, wherever it arises, is matter choosing to shape itself into being, and you right now are doing the same. With every breath, every choice, every quiet second in the darkness of your room, you are making yourself. Let that thought drift through your mind like a thin, glowing galaxy. Let it draw you gently towards sleep, where every form of life, every dream, every possibility is free to bloom. After leaving behind the gentle journey through strange and wondrous forms of life, where you met mirrored beings, methane-dwelling organisms, shapeless plasma spirits, and even shadow biospheres breathing quietly beside you, something tender may now be unfolding in your chest, a feeling that the universe is far wider than anything you have ever imagined. And as that feeling warms softly beneath your ribs, a new question drifts into your mind, light as smoke. If life itself can be so strange, then how strange must be the laws that govern this universe? We are stepping into the deepest part of tonight, a chapter not only about physics, but about the limits of human understanding and the beauty hidden within what we cannot grasp. As Richard Feynman once said in the Feynman Lectures on Physics, I think I can safely say that nobody understands quantum mechanics, and perhaps it is within that not knowing that peace begins. let your eyes soften. Let your body sink deeper into its resting place. And come with me into the greatest mysteries of the universe. Mysteries that humankind, no matter how brilliant, has only brushed with its fingertips. The first mystery, the true nature of gravity. We grow up thinking gravity is a pull, an invisible rope binding everything together. But Einstein said otherwise. There is no rope, no force, only space curved by matter. And everything simply moves along those curves as a natural habit, a description as elegant as poetry. Yet it opens a deeper abyss who curves space. What is matter? What is space? What is reality? Even today, we do not know if gravity has a carrier particle. The graviton, if it exists, has never been found. Gravity behaves like a question that refuses to answer, like the emotions we cannot fully name yet still feel pulling us in a certain direction. The second mystery is the universe infinite. If you imagine the universe as a sphere, remember that a sphere must sit within something, and if the universe has no boundary, no final wall, then it stretches forever, an endless space without conclusion. In such an infinite space, every possibility must occur, including another version of you, listening to these words in another cosmos, the multiverse, an infinite repetition of your existence. Nietzsche and Thus Spoke Zarathustra imagined this through the image of eternal recurrence. All things return eternally. If you knew infinite versions of you were living infinite lives, perhaps you would feel a bit lighter about this one. Because every regret, every choice, every path you missed has already been lived by another you. Then comes the most famous experiment in quantum physics, the double-slit experiment. When an electron passes through two slits, it forms an interference pattern like a wave. But when you observe it, the pattern disappears. The electron becomes a particle. Reality changes because you looked at it. A world that dances in response to attention. The universe is not rigid as we once believed. It is soft, soft enough that your gaze can shape it. And life too behaves this way. When you look at it through fear, it narrows. When you look at it through calm, it opens. Reality is not only out there, it is also in your eyes. Another great mystery, the fate of the universe. Where does everything go? Big freeze so cold that all motion ceases. Big rip space stretches until it tears everything apart. Proton decay matter dissolves into nothingness. A future cold, empty, alone, yet also deeply quiet, deeply peaceful. The truth is, the universe does not fear endings. It merely changes form, just as we do. We transform countless times from child to adult to elder to something quieter still. Every ending is simply a metamorphosis. Then comes the origin of the Big Bang. Where did the universe come from? What preceded it? The answer remains a vast silence. Perhaps the Big Bang was a quantum fluctuation. Perhaps it was the mirror of another collapsing universe. Perhaps it marked the birth of time itself. Perhaps before is meaningless because time had not yet existed. Martin Heidegger once asked in Introduction to Metaphysics, "Why is there something rather than nothing?" A question the universe has never answered, and perhaps never will. And maybe its silence is beautiful. Next is quantum entanglement, what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. Two particles born together, separated by billions of light years. And yet when one changes, the other responds instantly, faster than light, beyond space, beyond time. A bond that cannot be severed. Perhaps human connection has something similar. Souls that touch once and forever move in the gravity of that encounter, even if they never meet again. A gentle entanglement of consciousness. Then we enter the realm of extra dimensions. We live in 3 dimensions. But physics suggests there could be 11 hidden curled so small that we cannot perceive them. Like feelings folded inside us, always there, even when unnamed. If we could step into the 4th, 5th, or 6th dimension, we might see new versions of reality, alternate paths of time structures our minds were never built to imagine. Not everything real has to be understandable. And then the question that haunts humanity, time travel. Is it possible mathematically? Yes. Practically unknown. But the more important question is this: why do we want to go back? Why do we want to go forward? Perhaps because we fear regret. Fear missing something. Fear that life could have unfolded differently. Kierkegaard wrote, "In either or life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Perhaps we do not need a time machine. Perhaps we only need to learn how to live more gently with time." And now a sorrowful but beautiful vision. A future universe so dark and empty that galaxies drift beyond one another's light. A distant civilization might look up at the sky and believe they are alone, that the universe contains only one galaxy, that the Big Bang never happened. Loneliness, not because no one exists, but because no one can be seen. Baudelaire once wrote in L'Esprit de Paris, "La plus grande douleur est celle d'être seul." The universe knows that sorrow. And finally, the multiverse. Infinite universes, infinite you, infinite paths, a version of you who failed, a version of you who succeeded, a version who lived differently, a version who never heard this story, a version who is already asleep under another sky. The multiverse is not merely physics, it is a reminder. You are not trapped in this single version of yourself. You contain infinite possibilities for infinite selves. And tonight, in this quiet moment, one of those possibilities is gently stepping into sleep. As these mysteries close, we carry no answers. Only the sense that the universe is so vast that every question can finally be set down. Sometimes not knowing is the most healing thing of all. When the great mysteries of physics come to a close, the questions of curved space, the fate of the cosmos, the hidden dimensions, the faster-than-light entanglements, you may feel your mind drifting gently, as though it has just wandered through a long corridor lined with windows looking out onto distant constellations. There are questions that do not need answers. They only need to be heard and accepted. And in that moment when you realize the universe is so vast that humanity knows almost nothing, a quiet tenderness appears. Those small humans have never stopped sending pieces of themselves into the cosmos, not only through probes, equations, telescopes, but through the strangest, sweetest, most innocent objects. Perhaps it is because we know we are tiny that we try to leave little gifts behind, little offerings tossed into the dark the way a child hides a stone under a tree for the future. Albert Camus wrote in The Myth of Sisyphus, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart, and these objects are the purest proof of that struggle, a joyful insistence on existing, on leaving a trace, on whispering to the universe, 'We were here.'" Let us gently open the next chapter of the night, a chapter devoted to the peculiar gifts humanity has sent into space. Small gifts, yes, but carrying the soul of our species within them. The first gift was mutagenic tomatoes. It sounds almost comical among rocket satellite sensors and spacecraft. Why would tomato seeds be launched into space? But the story is beautiful. NASA sent seeds into orbit to see how cosmic radiation would change them. Then they returned the seeds to Earth, where children planted them, watched them, learned from them. Those little seeds carried, in a sense, the childhood of humankind. Some morning in some quiet classroom, a child watched a tiny sprout push through soil, knowing it had once floated among the stars. Knowing the world was wider than they had imagined. Nietzsche wrote in Human, All Too Human, "In every tiny thing there is a whole world." And those tomato seeds, small, silent, brought home another world. Then there were dinosaur bones. A fragment of ancient fossil carried into orbit, circling Earth and returning again as though time itself bent, letting the distant past touch the far future. That fossil had slept under rock and mud for tens of millions of years, and then lifted by creatures who evolved from the ancient life it once belonged to, it was carried upward to see Earth from above. A strange circle of existence, a reminder that no matter how far we travel, we carry our history with us. Then came the ashes of Clyde Tombaugh, the discoverer of Pluto. When the New Horizons spacecraft flew past the cold shadows of Pluto, it carried with it a part of the man who had first glimpsed the planet as a faint speck through a modest telescope. Decades later, his discovery carried him 5 billion kilometers from Earth. So beautiful, it could make one weep. David Foster Wallace once said in This Is Water, "The most obvious, important realities are often the ones that are hardest to see." Pluto is one of the hardest realities to see in the sky, and now the man who found it travels beside it. There may be no tribute more fitting. And then came the humorous gifts, childlike yet deeply human. Pizza. Yes, pizza has been sent to the ISS. an ordinary food warm and familiar smelling like a cozy kitchen suddenly becoming a traveler of space. As if humans were reminding themselves no matter how far we go, we carry home with us. And who could forget the moment Alan Shepard stood on the moon and played golf? A small swing, a ball arcing through 1/6 gravity, a perfect curve against a sky of absolute black. The first and perhaps last time a sport was played on another world. In that instant, science was not equations, it was joy. It was the playfulness of the human spirit. And then one of the strangest gifts of all the pioneer plaques with nude figures. Not erotic, but simple diagrams showing the human form to any possible extraterrestrials, a quiet greeting, a gentle introduction. This is us, fragile, unshielded, unadorned. A picture at once scientific and heartbreakingly sweet. Ursula K. Le Guin once wrote, "In the left hand of darkness to be seen is the first step toward being understood." Those nude figures are that first step, a request to be seen, to be understood, to be someone's friend in the dark. But stranger still, a manhole cover blasted upward by a nuclear test. Some estimate it may have exceeded Earth's escape velocity. If true, then the first object to leave Earth was not a spaceship nor a satellite, but a manhole cover. Absurd, but also deeply human. Because the universe does not demand perfection from us. It simply receives whatever we send, even if it is strange, accidental, or meaningful, only in the way laughter is meaningful. And when we look back at these objects, the tomatoes, the dinosaur bones, the ashes, the pizza, the golf ball, the pioneer plaque, the manhole cover, we begin to understand something quietly beautiful. Human beings are small, naive creatures, yet overflowing with love for the universe. We know we are insignificant. We know the cosmos does not need to remember us, but we still send it these tiny gifts like a child leaving a stone beneath a tree just to see what it might become someday. Not to impress, not to conquer, but to say, in one brief moment of history, we lived, we dreamed, we loved. And these are our little marks. These strange objects become the diary of humanity's soul, a diary drifting among the stars. And as you listen, perhaps you too are sending something invisible into the universe, a breath, a thought, a small wish only you can hear. Let it drift. Let it become your own gentle offering. Because sometimes in the strangeness of what we send out, we finally discover who we are. The universe is not only science, it is also the keeper of everything soft and innocent within the human spirit. And just as you smile at that tenderness, a question rises slowly like a small bubble drifting across a still lake. In the vastness out there is someone looking back at us. Is there another place, breathing, living, waiting to be found? Tonight, as the starlight dims behind your eyelids, let me guide you onward, not to distant galaxies, but around our own small solar system, where life may be hiding in cloud layers beneath frozen shells or within oceans untouched by sunlight. Nietzsche wrote in The Gay Science, "In the mountains of truth, you will never climb in vain. Perhaps the search for life is the same even without answers. Every step upward still matters. The first place that seems impossible for life may actually cradle a strange kind of life, Venus. Venus is hot enough to melt metal. Its pressure crushes anything. Its surface is a furnace. But the clouds above hold gentler temperatures, softer pressures. Molecules like S8, if they exist, could shield microbes from sulfuric acid. A quiet thought unfolds. Even in hell, there may be a place where life can rest. Just like in our own lives, even when we fall into a place we believe we cannot survive, there is often a thin layer of softness holding us together. Farther out we reach Pluto Triton and the frozen moons of Uranus. They seem dead silent, buried under tens of kilometers of ice. Yet beneath that ice there may be hidden oceans wider than the Pacific. Oceans without light, without sky, without wind, but with heat from the core, with salts, with energy. And that is all life needs. How strange and lovely that the coldest places may shelter the warmest seas. So much like us, the hearts that seem frozen often hide the deepest, warmest oceans. Then we arrive again at Titan, Saturn's great moon. A world of golden haze, 180 degrees cold. But Titan has rivers, lakes, and rain not of water, but liquid methane. A complete cycle utterly alien to Earth. A world where organisms, if they exist, might breathe methane, live on hydrocarbons. If Titan holds life, it would prove something profound. Life does not try to imitate Earth. It only tries to be itself. And so do we. We do not need to resemble anyone else to be called alive. Next is Enceladus, Saturn's small moon. It is tiny, so small you might think nothing is there. But when Cassini flew past, it found colossal geysers erupting from cracks in the ice carrying organic molecules, salts, methane, hydrogen, signs life needs. Ejected upward like the breath of an underground sea, Enceladus reminds us gently, sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest secrets. Like a glance, a simple sentence, a fragile memory that ends up shaping an entire life. And then Europa, perhaps the brightest hope for life in the solar system. A surface of ice streaked with blue fractures like veins. Beneath it lies an ocean deeper than any on Earth, warmed by the tidal pull of Jupiter. Liquid water plus energy plus minerals. The three essential ingredients. If any place shelters slow, silent creatures drifting in the dark, it may be Europa. When we look at Europa, we see our own souls reflected, a cold, still rigid shell on the outside. But beneath it, a vast ocean no one has ever reached. You too hold deep waters inside waters even you have not fully explored. Then Mars, the dusty red world. Dry, windy, seemingly dead. But methane patterns underground water and organic compounds hint that life might be hiding there or may have lived long ago. Mars tells us what seems lost may simply be asleep. But the gentlest, loveliest mystery of all does not belong to any planet space itself, life drifting in the vacuum. The idea that microbes or spores could float for millions of years between stars in airless cold near absolute zero, bathed in cosmic radiation, sounds impossible. Yet some organisms on Earth have already shown it can happen. This idea feels like an unfinished poem. Perhaps the universe is full of tiny seeds of life drifting, waiting, searching for a place to bloom. Just like inside us, the seeds of hope drift through long, dark periods, and with a single beam of light, they awaken. When we step back and look at it all, Venus, Pluto, Triton, Titan, Enceladus, Europa, Mars, and even the great emptiness between stars, we understand something profound. Life always finds a path, soft yet enduring, fragile yet unwavering, silent yet eternal. Hannah Arendt wrote in The Human Condition, "The miracle that saves the world is the fact of natality, the birth of new beginnings." And the universe is the same. Where we expect endings, there may be beginnings instead. Whether or not life exists out there, the search always reminds us. Within each of us are hidden oceans, unguessed cloud layers, regions untouched by light, and within them always the possibility of new life emerging. Let that thought wrap around you like a thin, gentle blanket. Let it guide you into the deepest ease. And if your eyes are beginning to close, let yourself drift slowly, quietly, like a tiny seed of life floating through the vastness of the cosmos. And as we leave behind Europa, Titan, Venus, leave behind the oceans hidden beneath ancient ice, the acidic cloud layers the geysers that rise like the breath of a buried world. Perhaps something indescribable is rising within you, a feeling both small and vast, fragile and full of hope, as though you are standing between two shores of a deep thought. The universe is so wide that nothing is impossible, and you too are so wide within that anything can take root inside you. And this is the moment the journey reaches its end. Not the end of knowledge, not the end of the story, but the closing of a circle where everything you have heard, seen, and felt gathers into a single point, the place of the human being in the universe. Throughout this long night, we have wandered through forgotten space missions, those moments when old, weary machines, sometimes breathing only through faint signals, still tried to send back one last piece of light to Earth. We looked upon fiery Venus where the Soviets once landed. We drifted across Titan wrapped in methane fog. We watched Jupiter roar with storms older than civilization itself. We listened to Mars whisper that its past was never as quiet as we once believed. We traveled through the strange objects humans sent into space. Pizza golf clubs, dinosaur bones, the ashes of an astronomer, gifts so odd and innocent they softened the heart. And then we stepped into the mysteries of physics. What is gravity? When did time begin? Is the universe infinite? Are there endless versions of you, living endless variations of your life? These questions did not just open the sky, they opened the mind. They opened a stillness rarely found in the rush of daily life. Carl Sagan once wrote in pale blue dot, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." And as you listen to these stories, perhaps you felt it too, that somehow the universe is looking at itself through your eyes. Going deeper still, we touch the technologies of interstellar travel, light sails, antimatter engines, warp drives, ideas so beautiful they read like poetry. For even when the equations are incomplete, they reveal something true: humanity has never stopped dreaming. Then we entered the realm of exotic life. Life built from silicon. Life living as plasma. Mirror life. Life drifting through the vacuum. Each form a gentle reminder there is no single mold for existence. And through them we understand ourselves more clearly. We have the right to become whatever we must become in order to continue living. Finally, we paused at the places in the solar system that might harbor life. Not the beautiful places, but the quiet ones. The places where life would have to hide, just as hope sometimes must hide beneath the heavy ice of life's hardships. And as you listened, you may have begun to realize we search for life out there because we are searching for ourselves. We look for Titan's patience in maintaining its frozen methane cycle. For Enceladus' softness in the water it sends into the dark. For Europa's steadiness in its silent hidden ocean. For Mars's persistence in the molecules that refuse to fade. For Venus's resilience in its self-protecting clouds. For the small, flickering signs that refuse to die like the smallest flame in our own hearts. And then, at some quiet moment, as you loosen your body and your breath deepens, you may notice something this entire journey has been whispering without saying. The universe is not vast to make you feel small. It is vast, so you may know that even in your smallness, you have a place. Your existence, your quiet thoughts, your tiny dreams, your unhealed wounds, the moments when you ask, "Who am I in all of this?" are all part of the greater tapestry. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote in Being and Nothingness, "And is a useless passion." But when we look into the night sky, that uselessness becomes beautiful. Because it is precisely our useless passion that makes us seekers, that makes us reach, that makes us yearn for something beyond our grasp. And it is the seeking, not the answer, that brings us closer to the universe. This journey from the probes falling onto Venus to the water plumes of Enceladus to the photons dancing in the double-slit experiment has whispered one truth: we may never truly know what the universe is. But not knowing is what makes the universe a place where we can find peace. Like a lullaby whose words we do not understand yet feel completely. And now, as the night has grown very deep, as your mind has drifted across planets, through gas rings, across oceans, atoms, and dreams, let this final sentence rest with you, light as a leaf, deep as a spiral galaxy. You are not alone in the universe, and the universe is not alone in you. And now, as our journey comes to its end, as the stories of planets of light of life and the ancient mysteries of the cosmos slowly dissolve into the gentle darkness of the room, where you rest, allow yourself to become light. No more questions to solve, no more distances to cross, no more quiet worries clinging to the corners of your mind, only breath and stillness. You have traveled far tonight, farther than any spacecraft, farther than the ordinary thoughts you carry through your days. You have touched those deeper layers within yourself that in the rush of life you rarely give yourself the chance to enter. Let everything you've heard become part of this piece. A small part, yes, but enough to soften your heart. Carl Sagan once wrote in Cosmos, "Somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known." But tonight, that incredible thing is not somewhere distant. It rests quietly in this very moment, in the way your eyelids loosen, in the way sleep approaches like an old friend returning home. If you are still awake, know that there is no need to hurry. Sleep will arrive in its own time, as softly as a meteor gliding across the sky, silent and unannounced, yet so beautiful that seeing it once is enough to remember it forever. Thank you for wandering through the universe with me tonight. Thank you for allowing your mind to open to listen to drift. And thank you for the gentle presence of your being in this moment. I wish you a sleep that is deep healing and utterly peaceful. Until we meet again on another journey among the stars.